I'm John Davidson, and this message is the extra points from them too. So these are points that I feel are good points to make, but they just didn't make the final cut. Right. So these are either points that are made up of topics that I wanted to go deeper into, or ones that I just thought were like real good points, but they just didn't fit into the flow of the message. Right. So I call these extras. And I'll do these every now and again when I have a message that has like extra good stuff, right, that doesn't fit. So since it's made up of like semi-related points, this message won't exactly have like a flow like a regular message would, and there won't be like smooth transitions between every single point. And then some of the points might seem unrelated, but it's all good stuff, right? So I'll start with submission. Right. So one of the main goals that I wanted to achieve with them too is to help both men and women to accept God's order within male and female relations. Right. To really embrace Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21 through 33, which states that women and men should submit to each other. Right. But I do understand that submission today has such a negative connotation, it's hard for us to embrace and accept that word, right? Because it almost seems like a curse word today. So I made the point that in the message that it's easier for women to respectfully place herself under a man's leadership if that man treats her as an equal with love and respect and protection, right? So that point I want to kind of dig deeper into. So the way I illustrate it is, when I was younger, like it was easy for me to place myself under my parents' authority because I knew that they loved me, right, and they would protect me, and I knew that they wanted like the very best for me, and they didn't want to lead me into something that wasn't best for me, right? They wouldn't lead me into anything that was harmful. So, in other words, I knew that them leading me would not be leading me into temptation, but delivering me from evil, right? So, men, if women knew that you loved them so much that you were willing to die for her, to protect her, and to cover her, and she knew that you were leading her into what was like best for her, and not something that was not less than what was expected of her. And if she knew that you respected her as an equal and not a subordinate, then she'd be willing to put herself under your submission or under your authority, right? Because it's in her best interest to. And this doesn't just apply to marriages either. It applies in any relationship, managers, leaders, or pastors, anyone in authority, right? That applies. Right? So the next point is die. Right, so I'm going to, of course, follow up submission with death, right? So, and this point is actually my favorite and my least favorite point of the whole message when I was writing it. So, so it's my least favorite because it's not easy for me to do. Right, it's actually an area of my life, my personal life, that I haven't mastered yet. Right, so I got to put a lot of work and a lot of effort into it. But it's my favorite point too because it's one that helped me the most in like more recent years, and it's the area where I see the most fruit in my personal growth and in my marriage, right? So remember in them too, when I got to the point where I said that men and women had work to do, right? They had the most work to do, and there was a part for men where I said that Jesus is the model husband, and we have to be more like him than like Adam, right? And we have to sacrifice ourselves to cover our wives. So when God showed me this, it stopped me in my tracks, right? Because I was writing it at like the message. I was writing it at like 5:30 in the morning. You know, I'm an early bird, so I get my work done in the morning, and I'm writing it, and I come to this part, and the Holy Spirit shows me the comparison between Adam and Jesus, the second man Adam. And not just a comparison, but specifically he showed me how how different they were as husbands, right? How Jesus is the model husband. And so when the Lord showed it to me, I'm writing it all down, and I'm like, yeah, that's good. This is gonna be good. And I sit back as I finish that part. I sit back and review it, to see if I have to edit it. And then I'm reading it, and then it hit me, and I'm like, wait a minute, you talking to me? Like this seemed like this for me, right? And immediately I thought about different instances or situations that came up in my mind where in my marriage I've been more like Adam than like Jesus, regardless of who was at fault, right? I placed blame and I participated instead of stopping to see what was needed at the moment, right? And these memories weren't to make me feel shame at all. God was just showing me opportunities where I had a chance to be like Jesus, but instead I chose to be like Adam, and it made the situation worse and not better for either of us, right? So I was like, wait, are you saying this to me, Lord? I thought this was for them, right? And He showed me that this is what He means by sacrifice yourself and die, not a physical death, because Jesus already did that, right? When He died on the cross, He died a physical death for all of us. God was showing me that when He says sacrifice yourself, He means die to self. I have to look deeper and look past what is being said and done in the moment, and see what is needed in the moment, what she needs that will cover her. And for me, I'm very opinionated. I'm a very opinionated person, and I'm strong-willed too. So that's a real hard thing for me to do. I have to actually like put myself aside in the moment and be mature enough and husband enough to not participate in faulty behavior, and at the same time see, oh, you're hurting right now, right? You're exposed and you're vulnerable. You need covering right now, right? Not my opinion of what you did wrong or what you said wrong, not my blame, not my argument, none of my frustrations, definitely none of my finger pointing, right? You need to be covered in love, and I need to let all that other stuff die, right? Just let it go. My wife says it. She'll say something like this, like she'll say it just like this. She'll say, "Can't you see that I just need a hug right now?" And my spiritual big bro, he says the same thing. He'll say, like, I'm paraphrasing. He'll say, sometimes you just gotta look past all that and just give her a hug in the moment, right? And to be honest, there's been times when I couldn't see the need to show love in the moment because I was blinded by my opinions and my frustrations, and even my pettiness. All that got in the way, right? It's been plenty of times when my wife she may not be talking to me, right, and I'll take it personal, and I'll get petty and just not talk to her back, and when she asks me like why I'm treating her different, I'll just put the blame on her, and I'll be like, well, you weren't talking to me, and so I'm not talking to you, or you talking dry to me, so I'm talking dry to you. But then come to find out afterwards that the reason that she wasn't talking was because she wasn't feeling well, right? And instead of me looking beyond the surface and seeing what might be needed, instead I just made it worse by giving her another adversary to face. So now not only does she have like to fight with what she's fighting with internally, whatever she's battling with, now she also has to deal with me making things worse for her. Right? I made her hardships harder, and I became her enemy in the moment. And all I had to do is die to myself, right, and just kill off the pettiness, and then I'll be able to see that she needed love covering, and I would have been able to help and not hurt her or hurt my wife, or be a help to my wife and not be a hurt to her and myself, right? Because remember this part that Paul said in Ephesians chapter 5, 28 through 29. He said, in the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as they do their own bodies. For a man who loves his wife actually shows love for himself. No one hates his own body, but feeds and cares for it, just as Christ cares for the church. When Adam blamed Eve, instead of covering her, he put himself against her, right? Satan was already against her, and she already had been tricked by him, right? So she already had an enemy, and she was already dealing with the shame that comes from sin. And so in that moment she was being jumped, right? She didn't need another adversary to be by being blamed, right? We're not enemies, right? So we have to be careful not to join forces with the enemy against our spouse. So in those situations, like I'm not proud of those all those times, like all the times I gotten it wrong, but I did learn from them, and I have learned from them. And today I'm way better. Like I'm much better than I ever been, really. But you know, the sacrifice of my opinion and my argument, my point of view, sometimes like all the pettiness and the frustration, swallowing my words still does feel like death to me, right? It's hard. It's difficult. But I do have help in the Holy Spirit, so He helps me when I'm weak. He helps in my weak areas. So this next part is the abuse of authority. So another goal I wanted to try to accomplish with them too was to show how nonsensical abuse of male authority is, right? I made the point in that women are not lesser than men, right? They're equal too. They're equal partners and they're co-laborers who we just so happen to lead, right? So to go deeper on that, think about it like a project, right? Like that we have a project in school or whatever, or work, where you have peers of equal intelligence, but one is assigned the lead, right? Of the lead of the project. So the lead would treat the other peers with a certain level of respect, right? And as equal partners, instead of treating their peers as a subordinate, right? Men, we're only the lead of an equal partner, right? Not a subordinate. So if you treat your equal as a subordinate, then you're mistreating that person and you're undermining them, right? You're undervaluing them, and that leads to abuse, right? Abnormal use. That's abuse of that person. You can't treat one whole like a half or like a quarter, right? That's not equal balance, right? And God hates unequal scales. He hates unfairness of any kind. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1, the Lord detests the use of dishonest scales, but He delights in accurate weights, right? So that's a principal truth, right? So that means it applies in multiple contexts. God delights in fairness of all kinds, but He detests unfairness of any kind. So the way that I translate that into relationship terms is treat me like you treat you, right? When you treat a whole person who is your equal and who is made in the image of God as less than that, then they're gonna fight and they're gonna rebel and push until they receive that fairness, right? Till they're gonna break out and receive that freedom that they deserve. And this explains in the 40s the women's suffrage movement and the women's rights movement in the 60s and the 70s, and even today, like the 20th century women's movement, 21st century movement, even civil rights movements in the 60s and the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, all of that, and it all what it is just movements of people who refuse to be treated as less than, right? You can't treat that whole, in any whole, as a fraction. So, because sooner or later that whole person is gonna bust out and they're gonna break out of that fraction mentality, because there's a cognitive dissonance that tells that person that I'm not less than. And any woman watching, I want you to hear that and lock that in, that you're not less than any man, right? And that's a principle that's true for all human beings, right? Every gender, every sexual orientation, every race. You can't treat any human being as less than what they actually are, which is a child of the Most High God, right? That's royalty. And men, you also do yourself a huge disservice when you treat women as less than equal, because when you come together, right? When you're supposed to make one whole, when you come together, you don't form a whole, right? But when you come together or you marry, you engage, or you start a relationship with a woman who's not treated as a equal, then your union doesn't equal that one whole, right? Together, you're only about like 60, 70%, right? So I'll explain the math, because that sounds weird. That sounds crazy. Like the math sounds crazy, but it's accurate. So when God took the one whole, and he split them into two equal parts, right? So when he splits them, they aren't half, right? They're not half of a person. When God split them, they each are now two whole people, right? One whole male, a whole female, that come together to make one whole unit, mankind, right? And a man is that one whole individual. The woman is that one whole individual, right? But when they unify, they're one whole unit. And you can't have a whole unit with just one person, right? Because there's no union. Right? A unit needs union. So if you unify with a person who's not treated as a whole, then there's an imbalance. And we know how God feels about imbalance, right? He detests it. So if you come together with the and your unit is not 100%, but less than that, like 75, 65%, then that imbalance in your unit is going to wear you down, because the one of you who feels like they're the whole, they have to overcompensate to make up for the one that's not. And that's not long term, that's not sustainable, right? It leads to checkout and burnout. So men, you do yourself a disservice by treating women as less than, because you're hurting your own help, which means that you're hurting yourself, right? Quick story. Me and my wife, we've been together about 16 years almost, right? And there's been seasons in our relationship where I couldn't be the main provider, right? I had either like just graduated and I was working part-time, or even after I graduated, I just couldn't find a job in my field, right? Not enough to make enough to support my whole family, right? So my wife in those seasons, she stepped up, like, and she worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, like, to support our whole family. My wife, you should know, my wife is a hustler, right? So now, thankfully, like, you know, I have a career now, and I don't have to like, we don't have to do that anymore. Like, I can provide for our family. But my wife, she held up our whole family unit on her back pretty much by herself when I wasn't able to. And imagine if I did treat her like less than, right? Then or if I even if I acted like she was less than, then I would have been hurting myself and my whole family unit by blocking my help, right? And even now, I now have like the peace of mind to know that if times ever did get that hard again, and I wasn't able to be like the main provider, then I know that I have my wife, who's my helpmate, and she can and she will hold us up, right? She's proven that. She's done that multiple times in our relationship, and I know she can put this family on her back to support us, right? Now, I pray we never have to go back to that, and that I pray it never happens again. But it's just something to know that I have that kind of support, right? Available. It's available to me, right? That's comforting. Remember the verse that I read in them too. It was Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 through 11. It said, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. That goes for men and women, right? You put yourself in real trouble when you treat your spouse as less than or less than being, because you're hurting your own chances of success, right? By hurting your help. That's your help. So your chances of success. So unfair. So I realized that after I wrote them two, I realized that it seemed unfair to women that God placed the man as the lead or the head, right? But I wanted to show you how it's not really unfair, right? God just reordered things for our own good. Just like if I had two twin children, and I put one in charge because the last time I left them alone, the other one touched the stove and she burned herself, right? And then convinced her sibling to touch the stove, and they both got burned, right? So it would make sense that I would make the one who didn't touch the stove first the lead, because not only was the other one disobedient, but she also led her sibling to be disobedient. So that point right there leads me to some of the points where I thought that these were like the most interesting points of the message for me. So the first one is deceived versus led astray. So Adam, he was deceived, right? He was tricked. Or Adam wasn't deceived. He wasn't tricked, right? Eve was. Adam was just led astray by Eve. So what's the difference? So to deceive implies imposing a false idea or belief that causes ignorance, bewilderment, or helplessness. And that's what the serpent did to Eve, right? Deceived her, tricked her. To lead astray is to lead someone in the wrong direction or give someone wrong directions, right? To misguide them. And that's what Eve did to Adam. She led him in the wrong direction. So basically, deception involves intentional ill will, right? The enemy, or the serpent, had evil intentions with his deception of Eve, and because that's always his intentions, right? It's always his intentions are always to steal, kill, and destroy everything he can, right? But I don't believe Eve intended evil on Adam when she led him to eat the fruit. I believe she just wanted him to partake in the same thing that she had partaken in, since they were one, right? So basically, I think she was just sharing. This is the part of the reason why I believe God shifted the order and put man as the lead too, because he wasn't deceived. And I know what you're thinking. So why make Adam a leader if he's proven to be a bad follower? And the only answer I have for that is that love will make you do some crazy things, right? So be careful who you fall in love with, and just make sure you put a lot of care into who you fall in love with, because love can lead and love can lead astray. And I also believe that since the woman was deceived, this has to do with why God put enmity or hostility between the woman and the serpent, right? The enemy. So remember that was part of the serpent's curse, right? It was, I believe that God did that so it just to make it wouldn't be so easy for the serpent to deceive the woman again. Right, and today, what that looks like, in my opinion, today it looks like that feeling that women get when they're married or they're in a relationship, and they can sense something wrong, right, or someone wrong that threatens the relationship. We call it a woman's intuition, right, or instincts. Women can just like sense or feel when there's something off. That kind of poses a threat to her relationship or her family. I believe God put that in place as a protection measure, like against the enemy, to protect women and to protect families and relationships, right? So it's kind of like a alarm, and that part is just that's my opinion. So this next part is the next point is order of the punishment. So Remember in the first message I said sequence matters, right? So notice the order of the curse and the consequences. So God starts with the serpent, and he gives them the most severe punishment. And then he moved to the woman who gets not as bad a punishment as the serpent, but it's worse than the man's, right? And then finally the man, he gets his punishment, which is less severe than all three of them, right? So I believe that this is because the serpent initiated it, he started it all, right? And he intended to do evil. The woman was deceived, so she didn't have wicked intentions, like her heart wasn't evil or wicked, but she did lead her husband into disobedience, right? And the man, he was just following his wife, so he was led in the wrong direction, and that doesn't mean that he's innocent, right? He's not innocent by any means, but because he doesn't have that excuse, right? He doesn't have the excuse that he was being deceived or tricked like the woman. He just followed and was disobedient, right? So he followed his wife instead of following God, which means he followed the wrong leader, right? This next point is also another one that I thought was like real interesting. I call it dual leadership. So another thing is that I noticed is I believe since Adam and Eve were created equal, if they never sinned, I believe that they both would take turns leading each other, right? Depending on the situation. Women would sometimes be the lead or the head, and men will sometimes lead. This verse leads me to it. It's Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 28. Then God said, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground. So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Verse 28. Then God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and govern it or subdue it. Reign or rule and have dominion over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground. So even before God creates mankind, we see that his intentions is for them to rule and have dominion over the earth. Then once he creates them, then he gives them dominion and power and authority. So Adam, he showed that he had this authority, right? And this leadership when he named Eve. But Eve also showed that she had authority, and she took the lead because she ate the fruit first, and then she gave it to Adam to eat, right? So she took the lead. It was in the wrong direction, but it still shows that she took the lead, right? She took action first and then gave it to Adam, who he was right there with her, and she got him to take the same action that she took, and that's leading someone, you know. And Adam, he didn't say anything in opposition the whole time, like to any action that she took. He didn't say anything because he was following her lead. And think about this too. So this is something I thought was an interesting point that tied into this. If men were always meant and always made to have authority over women, then why is it part of God's consequence to women that the man would rule over her, right? Why is that a consequence? That shouldn't. If it was always meant to be, then it wouldn't be God correcting things and reordering things. If man was always meant to be the lead, then that wouldn't be a consequence, right? I thought that was interesting. So this next part is the curse versus the consequence. So I also wanted you to notice this is that the difference between a curse and a consequence, right? So the serpent receives a curse, right? Adam and Eve received consequences, and the consequence, they're more like a reordering of things, right? Instead of a curse. They were given a consequence for their actions, right? So that's just that's discipline, right? For disobedience, and discipline that's for their own good, right? Proverbs chapter 3, verse 11 through 12, it says, "My child, don't reject the Lord's discipline, and don't be upset when He corrects you, for the Lord corrects those He loves, just as a father corrects a child in whom He delights." Right. So next part is I call this labor pains. So notice that both the man and the woman, they received the consequence of labor pain. Right. The woman, she's given pain in labor, right? Labor of a child. The man is given pain for the labor to make a living. So a consequence, as a consequence of the sin and disobedience of mankind, making a life and making a living is going to be done in pain. Like where before the fall, before the sin, and before all the judgment, all they had to do was tend to the garden, right? Tend to it, and they could eat freely. And tending to and watching over something is way easier than labor, right? After the judgment, the man, he would have to struggle to grow food and earn a living, just like the woman, she would have to struggle to bring forth life, right? So pain is assigned to the both produce and to production. The fruit of the earth and the fruit of the womb would not be done. It wouldn't be easy to produce, right? And that's not how Eden was supposed to be, right? Eden was blooming with life. It was blooming with fruitfulness, right? The tree of life, trees bearing fruit. Adam and Eve, eventually they would have brought forth fruit, right? Been fruitful, and they would have brought forth life. Because remember, God told them, He said, "Be fruitful," right? And multiply. So it was supposed to be easy. It was supposed to be life and life abundantly. Life that is abundant, and fruit that is multiplying, right? Fruitful and multiplying. There wasn't supposed to be any pain or any struggle to make a life or make a living. It pleased God to bring forth life in His own image, right? And we're made in His image, so it should be pleasurable for us to bring forth life in our own image, right, by having children. But instead, there's pain, and pain that's greatly multiplied. It should have been life abundantly and fruit that is greatly multiplied. And I thought that was interesting too. So this next point is a quick point. It's just I call it the land is cursed. So this stood out to me is that since because of the curse, the land is because of the curse on Adam, or the consequence for Adam, the land is cursed. So God tells Adam that because of his disobedience, God's gonna curse the land. So today we shouldn't be shocked at all the natural disasters and the earthquakes and all the stuff that that we see with the earth, because I think that's where it started, right there in the garden. So this next part is for single people. I do realize the message, it may seem like it's geared towards married people or people in a relationship, but when I was writing it, I noticed there was a lot of wisdom in the text for single people. And one of them is that before you search for a spouse, you should find your purpose, right, and then work in it. So, because you do that and you pray to God that He sends you someone who is a helper, right, in your life's work, right, which is your purpose or your calling. Then watch God send you helpers or friends, associates, whatever, partners, and a helper who is just right for you, a spouse. So your life partner will help you in your life's purpose. They'll be the helper who's just right for you to help you, which means they'll be best suited to help you accomplish your purpose, and they'll be best suited to help keep you accountable around dangers. right? The key insight though is instead of you trying to find your spouse first find your work, your life's work. And I don't mean like just like a career or a job. I mean like your purpose, like why you're here. So you do that. Once you do that, you find your purpose and you work in it and work towards it. Then I believe it's easier for you to find your spouse. That's because that's a sequence that God shows us, right? He get to know God, right? The one who made you, then know who you are as a child of God, right? Made in his image, and be secure in that, walk in that. Then find out from God what your work is, what your purpose is, and then keep your eyes open for your helper, right? The one who will help you in that purpose for life. When you lock in and you focus on your purpose, you're actually more attractive to the right types of people who may potentially be, the helper who's just right for you. So if you focus on life's work, I think it'll be easier for you to attract your life partner. And this way you don't have to lock in on your life's work at the expense of searching for your life partner, because that person, once you focus on your purpose, your partner they'll not only find you, but they'll be brought to you, right? The same way Eve was brought to Adam. And what God has brought together, let no one tear apart, right? That no one means us, even us, right? Especially us. So the atomic explosion. This next part is atomic explosion. I ended them two with an atomic explosion, not literally, but almost literally. So what that I wanted to go into what that explosion looks like today, what it actually could be. I think that explosion could look like toxic masculinity, right, meets overly extreme feminism, meets identity confused children, right? It looks like women suppressed from men who have, abused their authority. And it looks like vengeful women who refuse to be suppressed, right? We can't keep fighting each other and the way we've been doing it, right? Because the results is going to be catastrophic. And I think who is going to suffer the most will be our children. They're already being attacked from all angles that we have no idea of, and attacked at even at an earlier age than other generations, right? And especially on their things like their identity. If men and women if we don't get it together, then we're going to lose. We're going to lose not only ourselves, but I believe we will lose our children as well. So I'll pray us out. Lord, kiss the envelope of this message and send it out by the power of your Holy Spirit. Send this message to whoever you wanted to reach, especially those who you wanted to reach, and who you intended this message to reach, who you intended me to reach with this message. Seal it up by the power of your Holy Spirit, and seal it up with love, that same love that you created us with, and that you corrected us with, and the same love that you redeemed us with, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.